Thank you for joining the Art2Market Coffee Talk with Barney Davy. Hi everybody, this is Barney Davy. I'm here today talking with environmental artist Wyland. If you don't know, he's been one of the most successful artists over the last few decades. He's had a career that most artists would love to have. He creates in all kinds of media, paintings, sculpture, murals. He's created 100 Wailing Walls public murals that are all over the world, seen by over 1 billion people. And now he's written a book to help artists. He's a guy who just gives back in so many ways. Besides being an environmentalist and a humanitarian, now he wants to give back to fellow artists. And he's written this book called Don't Be a Starving Artist. So Wyland, I want to say hi to you and thanks for joining us on this conversation today.
Well, good seeing you after about 20, 25 years or so. It's a small world, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I was thrilled to have your PR guy reach out and tell me about this book. And I just want to ask you some questions about it. And given your background, it doesn't surprise me that your book's got 100% charitable aspect to it. Can you tell a little bit more about that part of the outreach? How's it going and what are your goals for it?
Well, my goal was to try to help artists. You know, I've had the honor of painting with over 1 million young artists, you know, as I did my Wailing Wall project. You know, it took 27 years to paint 100, you know, monumental ocean murals. And from the very first one, I brought the kids in and we set up an area for them to paint their own ocean mural. And I always got off the scaffolding and painted with kids because I had a first grade art teacher that kind of saw me drawing in the back of the class, wasn't really paying attention. You know, we artists, you know, we're different. And she asked me to see her after class, and I thought I might be in trouble. And it turns out she was an artist. And she said, you know, why don't we draw together, Wyland? And we spent an hour. And after that drawing together, she said, you know, Wyland, you could be a great artist.
Wow.
Really? Me? And it made such an impression on me, you know, and teachers can have that kind of impact. And that's all I needed. You know, she made me believe that I could be a great artist. And so I always remember that moment. And I said, man, maybe I can do that. So wherever I am, you know, in all 50 states and 100 countries, I always get kids involved through art and, of course, science, you know, because mine is both art and conservation. And I get more out of it than they do. I mean, I'll look over there at a kid making a piece of art and I'll go, like Picasso did, I'll go, no, I would never try that. And I'm thinking, I'm stealing that. But, you know, the whole purpose of this book, Don't Be a Starving Artist, was to give something back to artists. You know, we don't need angry, bohemian, starving artists, you know, today. And the most important thing about the book, this is the greatest time in history to be an artist because people are interested in art. Collectors are, you know, collecting and, you know, it's a good gig, you know. It's the best job on the planet. And it's also the best time in history to be a collector. So those kind of things come together. But you gotta, you know, you have to be smart about it. And, you know, I'm from the Midwest. You know, my parents were auto workers, and I have what I call uncommon sense. You know, common sense is not very common today, especially in Washington. But anyway, I just thought as an artist and Wyland Gallery's owner and founder, I could tell the whole story of being a complete artist today, you know, and maybe I could help these artists, you know, not make the mistakes that all of us make. So I just wanted to make a really simple book. It's easy reading because I wrote it, and it's really easy to kind of follow. It's very inspirational. It's very positive, but it cuts to the core about, you know, how to be a successful artist in the 21st century. And that's really what I want to see. And if I help, you know, 100 artists or 100 million artists, I don't even know if there's 100 million. I'm sure there is. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create, you know, as part of my legacy, somebody that gave something back, something good, something positive to artists. Because sometimes the artists, you know, they don't get the respect until they maybe get to my level, you know, and I think they should all get respect. You know, when you're a creative person, that's reason enough to have respect, in my view.
I agree. I had a chance to read the book. I love it. It's got straightforward examples and ideas and inspiration for artists on any level. And I was really pleased to find that, you know, I've been advising artists. I met you when I was working at Decor Magazine, and I was helping artists back in the late 80s.
I remember well. I was one of those.
Well, you were already successful when I met you, but nonetheless, I've been helping these artists one way or another in my own way. And your advice and mine dovetail. We agree almost 100% on things, like you were saying, that this is the best time to be an artist. And I hadn't thought about it, but I love it that it's the best time to be a collector too. And
yeah, it is. It is. And it's the best time to own an art gallery. It's the best of all worlds for artists. You know, and right now the most current thing is the National Endowment for the Art. You know, it looks like that's drying up a little. So what? You know, they're taking art and music out of our schools. Don't like it. Let's artists, let's take a stand and make sure that we ensure that every community has art. Every school in America. Be true to your school.
love it.
Back, man, that cause. You know, art is good to us. So if every artist, and there's artists in every city, every community, decided they would come together, you know, annually or even more, and even go into the schools and teach art and raise money and ensure that they have art supplies and an art curriculum, then we need to do that. No matter what they throw in front of us, that's not the final answer. We need to, artists, unite and ensure that our kids have, you know, the art education that they deserve, that we had. I mean, if I didn't have art, you know, education, I wouldn't have accomplished anything. So I just say, really simply, you know, who thinks it's okay to take art education out of our schools? It's not. Art drives creativity. We're going to lose a whole generation of creative thinkers, and I'm not going to let that happen. In fact, my next book is called Saving Art Education in America. It's about the same size, and it's right to the point, because I love the art teachers. I meet them all the time. I've given talks at, you know, the National, you know, Art Teachers Convention in New York, and you know, it's really sad to see what's happening, you know, to the arts and to art education in particular. So I think not only artists, but everyone that cares about our kids in America need to take a stand, and we need to do it quickly.
Thanks for bringing that up. I just coincidentally today in my Facebook newsfeed, they bring up memories. And in 2013, I published a post from the Arizona Republic on the value of arts to a community. And the reporter had gone in depth to actually show the financial value, not just cultural value of arts to the community. And I just reposted it again today and say, you know, it was perfect. It goes exactly along with what you've been talking about.
Well, you're so right. I mean, great cities have great art, public art,
right?
You know, art in their schools and community. So be a great city. If you're a city without art,
and stand up, be, like you said, be true to your school.
Exactly. And you know, artists are some of the hardest working people you're ever going to meet. I remember when Taj Mahal and I was doing this summit, and we were on this panel of artists, and there was a writer, and there was Taj, who's like the maestro, you know, the blues man. And him and I, you know, we just did a blues record in New Orleans, and then me, you know, visual painter, sculptor. And so the writer gets up there first. He says, artists are lazy. I put my hand up. I said, excuse me? You're lazy. Maybe you're lazy. Taj, are you lazy? No, artists are some of the hardest working people you ever see.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Back it up in the morning after a gig. But we pay our dues. We work hard. But I think art, you know, art can't even be measured, but I'm glad it is. I think it can. You know, I never thought about that. I think you can. You know, like in Laguna Beach, California, where I live,
right.
You know, I've been told by the Chamber of Commerce that I'm one of the reasons people come to Laguna Beach, to see, you know, my art at Wyland Galleries and to see the mural that I did.
Right.
So maybe there is a value on art. I think you guys are onto something.
I'll send a link over to that, because I think you will enjoy reading it. You know, as you were saying that, something that I just crossed my mind the other day was artists have a tough row in so many ways, and this goes back to what you're talking about with working hard. what other business, a dry cleaner doesn't have to get up and build the dry cleaning before he sells it. Artists have to tap into their creativity and make the product before they sell it. Who else does that? Just
try to get a loan too as an artist. I don't put artist now. I put publisher. You put artists for a loan, you're not, the bank's gonna laugh at you. So it's been a kind of a tough ride. That's why, you know, this book, this is for you artists. If you're watching this, go to wyland.com, you know, or your website. You can download this book for free anywhere in the world. In fact, I think the first hour we had over 1,000 artists download it. And now I'm running into them and they're saying, man, that book is a life changer. And I said, well, I'm really proud to give it. And you know, if I wasn't a successful artist, I probably couldn't do that. This is my give back. And the only reason that I'm allowed to do this because I've had a lot of success as an artist, but I've always, like you said, you know, been charity minded. We just did a fundraiser, and it's not only about the arts, but we did one for San Diego Youth Services. They take homeless kids off the streets, you know, and bring them all the way through, you know, to college. And so I donated a painting, which artists should always do that when they have a cause that they believe in. And anyway, so 5 more hands went up. So I got to go after this interview and paint 5 more paintings for this charity. But man, did it fill up my heart.
Good
and
for you.
we're all like that, you know. The government's not really the answer to all these things, you guys. We are.
I agree.
Artists shouldn't be competing. Artists should be competing, yes, maybe, but we need to support each other. You know, if some artist sells a painting, like I sold one last year for $480,000. I was shocked myself. I'm a living artist. Most artists are dead. So I sold one. I'm going, really? And then he bought a couple more. I'm like, wow. So, well, what the heck was my point? I was so excited though, and I said,
you were talking about artists need to.
Well, I hope artists don't get jealous and go, geez, why not me? Why did he sell a painting for $480,000? You know, I'm a better artist. You shouldn't do that. You should say, that's great, because that means it's possible for artists, living artists, to sell a painting for, you know, $500,000. Cool, man.
Do you remember in Time Magazine wrote an article about you and Thomas Kincaid and a bunch of other artists years ago, and you had the best quote in there. You said that, you know, the old masters never made any money while they were alive, and I didn't want to wait that long. You know,
that's pretty much what this book's about. I say it at my shows. You know, I said Van Gogh probably sold one painting his whole life for probably $100, and then after he died, over 100 million.
Right.
Like this. I mean, I would like to sell the art while I'm still alive to enjoy it. And by the way, not only because, hey, it enriches me, but it gives me more opportunity to do more charity, to give more back, to do, you know, help my communities wherever I am.
Sure.
So, you know, you can only make so much money.
And starving is starving. A starving artist is worried about existence. They can't.
Let's get rid of that starving artist. And, you know, also, you know, and I talk about a little bit in the book, and Dick Zimmerman, an artist from Clearwater that I've been collaborating with, he said, I'll write you forward. He goes, I almost gave up art because somebody told me, you know, you'll never make a living. His parents, everybody told him, you'll starve to death. And I remember, you know, I was taking out the garbage and I was moving out to California because even my art teachers at the Center for Creative Studies in Detroit, where I went to art school, and they said, man, you're West Coast style. You have new ideas. You should be in California. And I felt that. So, you know, I'm getting ready to drive out to California, but my mom says, hey, you got to take out the garbage first. So, you know, here I am with 2 bags of garbage, and I go out to the curb, and I have this kind of snobby, you know, neighbor that has the biggest house, you know, middle class. And she says, hey, Wyland, I hear you're moving out to California. I go, yeah, I'm going to go out there and see if I can make it. And she goes, well, you may be a good artist in Detroit, but you'll never make it in California. I mean, you know, and that could have tore somebody down.
Right.
But it really empowered me. I say to artists, let that be the fuel to drive you every day, that people say you can't make it as an artist.
It's another thing I talk about all the time. You got to have self-belief. You've got to start. You can't let anybody talk you down. I mentioned Chris Daughtry. He was you know, he came in fourth on American Idol or something, but he was on another show before that, some other rock and roll show, and no, he didn't even get on that one. He wasn't even good enough to become a contestant. He never let any of those things stop him. You know, he went on and had a great career. He has a great career as a recording artist because he never gave up on himself. He didn't let setbacks stop him from pushing
Not
forward.
only should you not ever give up, use that as your fuel.
Yeah.
I do. I know everybody doesn't, but when somebody says I can't do something, man, I just put my head down and say straight ahead till I do it and go way beyond it.
Let me ask you something else. I love that you publish a schedule so your fans and collectors can interact with you in person. I think too many artists avoid contact with the public. You know, they're introverted, and
Right.
just say, how beneficial is it to you in your career to get out there and meet your friends and fans and
Oh yeah, no, listen, you got to immerse yourself, you know, and it's balance. Okay. You guys hear that word all the time. If you're just a great artist and you're hiding out in your studio and you're not really getting out there and kind of networking and, you know, meeting people. Hey, by the way, it's the most fun to see somebody that really appreciates your art.
Right.
Tell you how much they appreciate you. It's not bad. But you can't have too much of that either. What you need is a real balance of, you know, your art always comes first, of course. You know, make the greatest art you can. Always try to improve yourself. Don't compete against others, compete against yourself. But then also get out there and really find the different vehicles to share your art with the world now, you know. And like I said, through social media, through all these different opportunities, man, you can put your art in front of 1 billion people right now. You know, your website, you can be creative as you've ever been. But if there's ever been, you know, a greater time to be an artist, I don't know when. Because this is the right moment in history to be an artist, because we create content. And that's what people need. That's valuable. You know, I mean, that's currency.
I agree. And for the first time artists, they can throw off the shackles. I love in the book that you don't put down galleries. You're a gallery owner, but you also realize that artists have a chance now to reach out and develop relationships, one-to-one relationships with collectors.
And publishing. You don't have to wait for somebody to think you're good enough to publish. You publish yourself. Although you should be your own best critic. You know, you only publish your very best works. And then be smart, man. Get it out in front of people. Let them pick the ones they like. And then they'll tell you, you know, you can paint for yourself all day. But what I do is I paint for me and I paint for, you know, my collectors. And then I do something kind of in the middle. And I hope people like it. You know, and
obviously they do. You've managed to make a great career out of it.
Good ride. I'm only 62, and by artist years, that's pretty young.
Yeah, absolutely. You may just be hitting your stride.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sitting over here right now at my world headquarters. I bought a building in Irvine, and yeah, I never liked that starving artist model. That just didn't make sense. When I was in college, you know, I was a pure artist since I was 4, but then I got a full ride to the Center for Creative Studies, and my professors would say, you worry too much about marketing and this and that and promoting your art. And I says, well, don't you have to know the business of art? And they go, no, you're a fine artist. Yeah. And now when I go to my college, you know, in Detroit, you know, I always go to my elementary school and I go to my junior high, Page Junior High, East Elementary. I go to my high school, Lanphier High School, and then I end up at my college. But I pile all my teachers and professors and family, my dad, all my friends. We pile in this big tour bus, and there might be a keg of beer and a few margaritas in there anyway, to celebrate after. But anyway, so we hit all the schools, and I talk to the kids, and I have to change my talk from the little ones, you know, the elementary ones to junior high by the time I get to college. So, you know, I do all those talks, and I had a really good point, and I forgot what it was.
You were talking about teaching.
Oh, okay. So my teachers, yeah. So now when I go back there and talk, they only want me to talk about the business of art. The same teachers that told me, you're a fine artist, that's all you need to worry about. Never think about, you know, promoting yourself or marketing. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, you know? It doesn't, it still doesn't. And now they're still teaching in Detroit, and I'm over here. Well, you know what I'm doing. I'm trying to be a world changer.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. Absolutely.
I was pretty cocky too, at one point, not cocky, confident, I guess. But I'm sitting in art history class the first year in college, and I fell asleep, really. And anyway, so the teacher wakes me up in front of the whole class, trying to embarrass me, and said, "Hey, Wyland, what's your problem? You don't like art history?" And I said, I don't want to learn about art history. I want to make art history. And I was that committed to it and that serious. And whether I ever do or don't, I set my goal high.
That kind of segues into what I'd like to ask you last year. I know you're busy and I don't want to keep you forever, but you didn't mention this in the book, but I wanted to ask you about courage, because I think it's an integral part of who you are as a person. And if I've been a fan of yours and been following you, and because I promote you and I love what you do and I want other artists to know about you and do what you do, but you've taken stands against people that wanted to take your murals off in Detroit, or when we talked at the LA Art Expo, you told me and my publisher about how the Long Beach Convention Center wanted to take your mural down because it was going to
look at Detroit. So here's Detroit, and I did a series of murals in the Midwest: Cleveland, Detroit, Indianapolis, just everywhere. And I wanted to come home, a homecoming, and do a mural for Detroit. And, at first, the Detroit Free Press News, whatever, Wylands, a Marine, Michelangelo, are so honored. And then all of a sudden I went from that to the artists, the haters, and that's what I was talking about earlier.
Right.
Anyway, they came out and said, well, Wyland's not a fine artist. He paints billboards. This isn't really art, and just went after me. And then it was a really, negative fight to even after I was supposed to paint the Joe Louis Arena. And you guys know me. I wanted to paint the whole thing. You could see it from Canada. Anyway, because of the politics of it, and one of my own teachers, wasn't my teacher, a new teacher at my college, actually had some snide remark about me being, not a fine artist, and I don't have work in the Detroit Institute of Art Museum. And just, so they came out and blasted me. Well, the politics got so hot that they canceled the wall, and I only had 3 days left to find a new wall in Detroit. And I did. We found one right next to where the new Tiger Stadium is, Miracle. And it's actually a better wall now, because if you go to the Tiger games off Woodward, you see this whaling wall, and it's whales in Detroit. And everybody's saying, well, we don't have whales in Detroit. This is ridiculous, We need another mural of Barry Sanders. Now, I like the Detroit Lions. I like Barry Sanders. And that mural's great. But I wanted to connect the fact that the Great Lakes connect to the ocean, that all water on Earth, is connected. So I'm trying to tell a story, and that's what art can do. And they go, oh, okay. So finally, I'm just tenacious, and I don't give up. And I did the mural, and even the politicians were attacking me on the news, before I got there. Now, when I started painting, I painted a little better and stronger. So all the TV's there, and I'm saying, you want to do something for Detroit? Let's vote these cronies out. And they did. So they go, the politicians are coming in saying, for the love of God, quit beating us up on the media. We have an election coming up. I go, that's exactly right. You're on the wrong side of this. So anyway, my point was that eventually they started doing billboards, like I think Reebok and some of the other big brands. They saw my wall and they said, hey, we can put a billboard over his mural, from Tiger Stadium for the All-Star game. And so I took on General Motors first, beat them, because what I said in the Detroit News is, in an editorial that I wrote, is I said, they're doing legal hocus pocus, because they're saying, oh, we're not destroying the mural. You destroyed the integrity of the mural. You covered it. So I do try to stick up for artists' rights. And there's a little thing called VERA, which is the Visual Artists' Rights Act, that protects all public art. Ken Twitchell had some battles. I had some. Unfortunately, it wasn't until 1990, January, and it protects your art. So artists, you own that real estate that you paint, unless you sign away on it. So it's a battle to save your art. And you also know about my battle with Caltrans, And I'll just tell you this briefly. So Caltrans, the specialty license plate came up, Coastal Commission said, hey, we would like you to do a license plate for us. And I was doing a show in San Francisco at Wyland Galleries at Pier 39. I said, that'd be great. So I come back here to Laguna Beach and I create this really cool license plate with one of my, paintings of a whale tail called Tales of Great Whales, one of my most iconic images. So I said, as long as it supports, my Wyland Foundation, because we're on the same message, preserve the ocean and the coast. Oh, yeah. This is why you got to sign agreements. So anyway, a few years go by. All of a sudden, they've raised over like $50 million, and they gave my foundation $20,000 in like 12 years. And every year, we need funding for our programs, that we do, the Wyland Foundation. They kept saying, we don't have to give you anything. So I said, well, then you can't use my art because it's intellectual property. It's mine. They said, what? You said we could use it. And I go, yeah, I said you could use it if you supported my foundation. So, I basically put some pressure on them. I admit it, that I'm not going to ask you now. You're going to give us 20%, keep your 50 million, but going forward, you got to give my foundation 20% of it and you keep 80. Oh, I'm the bad guy. I was in Norway giving a lecture for the UN, for UNEP, for the International Children's Conference. And my phone is blowing up. And all these artists are coming out against me going, oh, you're greedy. I'm greedy. First of all, I never took a penny. It's for my Wyland Foundation. I'm sticking up for artist rights. You artists should be the first one to say, hey, you're right. I'm an artist. What's wrong with me raising money with my art for my nonprofit? But boy, you can take on some people they're good at this. Artists, they took a full swing at me. I came back pretty good, though. I'm no wallflower.
No, you're not. And
I stuck up for artists' rights, and you should do the same. And we got to be united in this. You can't let the government or anybody else walk over you. Don't do it.
I love you for your courage. I love you for being willing to give back to the community, for supporting the environments.
I love the art community. I love artists. Don't you love being around artists? They are quirky. Yeah. They are weird, but that's what we need. We need art and music, and we need more of it.
I could have been in the insurance business and made more money maybe, but
You're so funny that you said that. My Uncle Jerry was a great artist, and he played football for Michigan State, Jerry Sell in Michigan. And his wife told him he had to get a real job, so he became an insurance man. But he lived vicariously through my whole art career. My parents, my mom, and my dad, always believed in me. My mom, when I was 16, she goes, "Are you going to get a job?" Growing up in Detroit, my parents are both auto workers. I go, "I have a job. I'm an artist." And she went for this, guys. She goes, "Okay." and she's here. She's running around the building right now. She's so cool. But listen, man, if you're an artist, it's in you. You cannot be an artist. So just go ahead and read my book.
Embrace it.
To you and
absolutely read the book.
Do what you were intended to do, man. Be a great artist, but be somebody that gives back. And I know you wanted to ask me what's really important about this book and about being an artist. You know what it is, and I think you already know. You got to be a nice person. Be a good human being. That's with everything, not only artists, but if you're a good person, you don't have to remember if you were, some, to somebody. Right. If you've been a good person your whole life, it comes back at you tenfold, 100-fold. So be a good human being, be a good person, be somebody that doesn't just talk about yourself.
And that comes back to that interaction part of working with people. If you're just a good person, it makes those interactions pleasant all the time.
Sure, and collaboration is where you're at. I mean, artist is a solitary, profession for the most part. But I'll tell you, I enjoy, painting with other artists and doing other things with other artists. It's magical. I used to do art festivals, and I still do Pigeon Key Art Festival with those folks down there. Most of what I do now is charity, and I love it.
Bless you for it, my friend. Tell us where we can get that, where anybody can get that book. I know it's free.
This book, and it's probably upside down, and I don't know if I'm upside down.
No,
you can just go to Wyland, my name, WYLAND.com. Go to Wyland.com. You can download it for free right now. And Thank you for sharing it with the world. And Daryl, thanks for getting us back together, me and
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate everything you're doing, and I'll let you go. Thanks for the time today. Take care.
Anaho. I'll talk to you again. Bye, everybody. Aloha.